All right, many of you probably noticed on X, I've kind of changed up a little bit. I was a big cheerleader for our DHS, our ICE agents, our Border Patrol agents, because they were doing great work. That's what I thought. They were doing great work at arresting and deporting criminal illegal aliens and legal aliens. The White House is now using criminal legal aliens, but they're all criminals because they came in here illegally. Okay. It was a big issue for many of us, and we were fired up after what we saw under the Biden regime. So fast forward now to what are we in? We're like way over, I don't even know, the 370 or 30 days. I don't even know what it is anymore. I got the countdown on my X page. But we're well into the Trump administration time right now. And I thought the deportation numbers would be a little bit higher, not going to lie. I'm a little disappointed with the numbers, but I'm also looking at the numbers and I'm being told by my sources that this isn't even accurate. What you're seeing are actually inflated numbers. So I did a little bit of digging. The other day, too, I also saw this article in the New York Times. This one sent me over the edge. ICE, which recently had purchased 11 warehouses for ICE detainees, well, now all of a sudden, they're actually looking to get rid of at least 7 of those 11. 7 of those 11. Now, your taxpayer money went to that. Of course, it was about $700 million went to that. And all this funding came from the big, beautiful bill. I can't speak right now. I'm so angry. The big, beautiful bill. That's where the funding came from. Now, here's the part that really sent me over the edge. I thought this was a fake news story. So I did my best and I reached out. And I reached out to both the White House and DHS. The White House did not respond to me, which was strange. But what's even stranger is DHS did respond, but DHS unfortunately did not even want to talk about the warehouses themselves. They wanted to just they wanted to deflect, and they did just that. They pointed out the fact that they have apparently deported over 3 million people, giving me a bunch of numbers, a bunch of self-deporting individuals and individuals that they've arrested, that they've alleged, had nothing to do with the warehouses. Had me really angry. Fast forward, I start going public and start saying, we're not getting mass deportations. Everyone's lying to you. It's not happening. Well, after I started that campaign on X, suddenly things got kind of strange. I asked DHS specifically for the number of arrests that have taken place under Mark Wayne Mullen. Now, as many of you guys know, he's been the DHS secretary for over 100 days now. And so there should be a vast amount of arrests. So I asked them repeatedly. Now, they can't tell me how many arrests have taken place under Mark Wayne Mullen. I'm very specific. I say ICE arrests. I don't want any other agency. How many have you arrested as of ICE doing the arrests? Well, they won't tell me. They keep giving me just these bulk numbers, which highlight the success under Kristi Noem allegedly that took place. But then it gets worse. 5 days after I started going hard on DHS for all of this, they magically came up with this new statistic. They're claiming that in 5 days, ICE has apparently arrested 10,000 individuals. 10,000. Now that's a massive number. So I reached out to my ICE sources and said, hey, they just sent this to me. What's going on here? And they laughed. And they said, Breanna, I don't even know where they're pulling that number from. There's no way. We would know if we made 10,000 arrests in the matter of 5 days. And they're claiming that's not the case. It's not happening. So again, I probably reached out to DHS about 3 times so far, asking them, and here's a statement that they just gave me just yesterday, asking them for the exact amount of individuals who have been illegal aliens who have been arrested by ICE. And again, I get this word salad. In President Trump's first year back in office, more than 3 million illegal aliens have left the United States because of the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigration. They go on again to give you a word salad, claiming somehow, some way that almost 1 million illegal aliens have been arrested. But here's my thing. I've talked to my sources. Those numbers aren't just ICE arrests. They're pulling together, and they did this under the Barack Obama years, they're pulling together the arrests, the apprehensions that are made by other agencies under DHS. And they're giving you this bulk number. So I was exhausted because I'm like, this can't just be me. There's got to be someone else out there who is trying to get their hands on these numbers. And I found out that there actually is a team of people doing just that. The Oversight Project had actually just filed a lawsuit today going after DHS for not providing them with the deportation data that they've been asking for. They filed multiple FOIA requests, and DHS is ghosting them. Mike Howell joins us now. He's the president of the Oversight Project, and he just filed this lawsuit. Mike, as always, pleasure to have you on. I felt like I was going crazy a little bit. I felt like I was the only one asking these questions, like, hey, can we get some explanation for these numbers? Can you break these numbers down for us? Where are you getting these numbers from? And no one does it. They give me these bulk figures, they throw my way, And I'm just left to kind of guess, is this accurate? Is this not accurate? My sources tell me it's not accurate, but Mike, you're trying to do the digging. Where are you at on all this?
Yeah, so I'm in the same boat as you. I'm so glad you called this out and are kind of really forcing the question and got that latest kind of, word salad, which doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. Obviously, there's a combination of categories there, but if you just take it on its face, it says in Trump's first year in office, 3 million left. And so first year is January to January. And it says of that 3 million, 2.2 were self deportation. So you'd intuit that 800,000 were deportations. Okay, so if we're at 800,000 deportations starting in January, it's now July. Now we're only at what, 948,000. So that means in 2026, there have only been 148,000 deportations. It just doesn't really add up. The contradictions are there. And look, we all want the agenda carried through. We know what we're up against. And we know there's a lot of people in the Republican Party who don't want the agenda carried out, and they've been yelling at the administration to stop. And I think it's kind of been working in some areas, the biggest one being worksite enforcement. That's where the illegals are. It's a density problem. They're in sanctuary factories, farms, industrial hubs, restaurants, and hospitality, a lot of it in red states. And with the financial and donor backing of a lot of Chamber of Commerce types that say, don't deport our illegal workforce. And that's why you got the kind of shift in focus initially from mass deportation to worst of worst, because those people didn't want their workforce deported. And we've been screaming from the rooftops that if you don't focus on worksite, in other words, the areas where illegals are, and punish the employers, then you're just never going to get the numbers up by going onesie twosies for criminals. And, early estimates going in were only 500,000 criminal illegal aliens in the country. And so now, like, we've seemed to have blown past that estimated number. And it's all just kind of, it belies suspicion in it.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm glad you mentioned this because I think this is really important. Just earlier today, I reported too that there was a Haitian illegal alien working at a food processing center, and he actually stabbed one of his coworkers to death during an altercation. And it's just one of the many stories we keep hearing about. We keep hearing about, and this is the part that gets me really fired up because when DHS provides me with these statements, they're ultimately saying that we're going after the worst of the worst, aka those who have committed heinous crimes in our country after they've been let in. And so obviously, we know under the last 4 years under the Biden regime, millions and millions of them, and I can't even trust the numbers that came out there. I'm sure they're significantly higher than what the Biden regime told us, were released into the interior of our country. And now we're just saying, hey, listen, we're going to go after those who have actually committed heinous crimes in the United States, and we're going to wait until they create victims. And that's the part that's got me fired up the most because we're supposed to be against that. We're supposed to be highlighting the fact that they have committed these crimes and preventing them from doing so. And it's not happening right now, unfortunately. But I kind of want to get back to the core of all of this. Your lawsuit that was filed, it was actually at midnight last night. You guys filed this great lawsuit against DHS. I know DHS is making their claim in response to all of this. I believe so, but they're not exactly acknowledging why they decided not to respond to you. Now, for those of you at home, they have a certain amount of business days. I believe it's 30 business days to respond to a FOIA request. And if they don't, then yes, you can file the lawsuit. I know this. I've sued other agencies, and I've done so far successfully. So give us some insight as to what's going on here with this lawsuit and why you just filed it.
Absolutely. So, for those who don't know, the Oversight Project, we're the ones kind of best known for our discovery of the auto pen scandal and some of the lawsuits related to that. But we really made our bread and butter initially with some FOIA litigation against the Biden administration, which proved, the border whipping hoax. So, we've been doing FOIA litigation at scale for years. And you're right. You got to wait for respondent, the administration or government agency to exhaust certain deadlines. And they, went well past those deadlines, and so we had exhausted kind of all of our options. And so we wanted to sue because we think it's critically important that these numbers get out. Not because it's like a way to shame anybody, but because we see the amnesty lobby right now pushing the Dignity Act and getting endorsements from, the president. And then also the farm worker amnesty, which has like 50 plus Republican co-sponsors of it to give amnesty to all the, illegals on farms. And then you have the Trafficking Victims, Reauthorization Act coming pretty soon in the House of Representatives, and that's the slush fund money that left-wing NGOs use to get people to the border, and the terrible policy that basically incentivizes human smuggling through UACs to the border. And so, like, all this to say, in Capitol Hill and in Washington D.C., the amnesty lobby's still there. And you remember well what President Obama and the amnesty lobby did during that administration is Obama wanted to be seen as the deporter in chief. So he combined deportation statistics with border arrest and other actions to pump up his numbers on deportations. So the amnesty lobby could run around town saying, no, like we've actually been pretty tough on this issues. Now is the time for the compromise. And history, repeats itself. And I see the amnesty lobby doing the same thing right now. And so we can't let them make the arguments that DHS has already deported, a million people and like 2.2 million have left the United States for self deportation, because that only strengthens their argument, which just isn't true. Because we aren't going to let an amnesty happen, and 2.2 million illegals have not self deported, and that's why the DHS added the word estimated into this new language. Estimated, I don't think existed in the previous versions of it, because that claim's kind of fallen apart. So we just need to get back to a place where we know what the true numbers are. They're announced regularly and with transparency. And guess what? Like maybe they're bad now, but with the right policy, they can get better. And that's how you generate enthusiasm for the base. It's only July. We got a while to go till November.
Yeah, and like you just said, that these are just estimates. But wouldn't this be easy to track, given the fact that we're actually paying illegal aliens to leave? So when it comes to the self deportation numbers, we should be able to put an exact figure on it since we're paying them to get out.
Yeah, you would think. And CNN got hold, I think, in March of some of those figures, and they said only 72,000 had used the CBP One Home app. And I'm not even sure if that was to absolute completion. And so there is some indication that the number's 72,000 and not 2.2 million. I'll put it to you this way. 2.2 million, that's like the size of a state, like close to like I would throw out Nevada there. If 2.2, the state of Nevada just like up and left, there would be some government indication and data to back that up, apart from just relying on this estimate without the underlying data, which is why in one of our targeted requests, which is now subject to litigation, we say basically, how did you come up with that 2.2 million figure? What are you relying on?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good question. And it's one that's worth getting an answer for. The American people want to know, especially because we're the ones paying for that. So I think that's fascinating. I also think this is fascinating too. You put this in your release earlier today, your press release earlier today. It's these Trump deportation tracker that you have for 2025. This one's very fascinating because you're saying that the goal is around a million and you're saying only completed is about 350,000, which obviously is a massive, massive shortage there. Now, I know you're working with a limited amount of resources and trying to track all of this down. What data did you pull together to get these figures?
Yeah, so we looked at a few things. One is there's certain like detention reports, which gave us fairly good insight. The other is, we had a lot of people working on the Mass Deportation Coalition who had, sources, friends, networks, and whatnot. And so 350,000 was the high end estimate for 2025 based off of limited data purview sources and the consensus agreement of the people who drafted the mass deportation playbook, and there's like 70 organizations as part of that. I think most people think 350 is just way too high. We want it to be as generous as possible so we could, be good faith, arguers here. But we have indications from some who believe that number to be less than 200,000 for actual deportations. And so if we have to update the tracker for 2025, we will. And obviously, a million is kind of the goal that was laid out there. So that's what we picked to measure against. Obviously, the goal is to get all illegals out of the United States. But if you get to the crossing the Rubicon of 1 million, that means the machinery is humming a little bit, so it can be built out in the years to follow, and you kind of get over this whole we're going to do weird combinations to try to play both sides.
Yeah, yeah. It's all very fascinating. It really, really is. And if the administration wants the numbers or your numbers to be corrected, the easiest way to do that is just to hand over the documents. I think it's a simple ask and it's one that the American people deserve. Again, it's our money going towards these things. And I mean, the big, beautiful bill allocated $44 billion to building up these detention facilities and expanding resources for ICE so that they can make massive amounts of arrests. Unfortunately, though, it looks like that's being halted and the White House doesn't want to give comment on that, which is really discouraging. Mike, before we go, though, I have to put up this picture. You've posted this on X, and I know you've had yourself quite the day. You were driving around DC in this great little truck that we have here. Break this down for us because from what I'm hearing, this was given to you guys, but it was a very hot day in DC, and you were driving this around.
Yeah, so fun day. We're a full service operation here at the Oversight Project. One of our supporters, obviously a fan of War Room, as you can tell from that truck, gave us this truck and we shipped it out to the DC area. And we wanted to get some photos of it, in front of Capitol Hill. We also went to SCOTUS with the message: stop the deceit, Amnesty Lobby. We see what you're doing, and that's what we did today. It's been a very hot, bumpy day in a 50-year-old truck, but whatever it takes to get the message out.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I'm sure you're not letting up anytime soon, and no one over at the Oversight Project is either when it comes to all of this. We look forward to getting all the numbers, crunching them down, and then reading your report when that comes out. Mike, thank you for all the great work you guys are doing over at the Oversight Project. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all that you do.
All right, guys, if you like the content you see here on this show, well, you get more of it. Head on over. Independentnewsroom.com is where you could go to sign up for my free email list. That's where you could sign up, enter your email address. And again, it's free, exclusive stories sent directly to you. But if you want to support the great work we do on this program, as well as on my X page, make sure you could become a paid subscriber. We're only supported by you all at home. And so we greatly appreciate it when you do just that. I also want to remind our audience, too, that I switched my phone service over to Patriot Mobile just a couple of years ago. It's been about 2 years, and I haven't regretted it at all. Patriot Mobile is obviously the only cell phone provider that is a true believer in the conservative movement, and they put their money where their mouth is. They support all the causes you and I both love, obviously pro-life causes, 2A, they support our veterans, and so much more. So stop with the cell phone providers that hate you and do the DEI hiring nonsense, and head on over right now, patriotmobile.com. Switch over. They use the same exact service, the same exact towers that you're probably using right now. I know it. I never have an issue with my service. On top of it, folks, again, they are funding things that you and I both love and hold dear to our hearts. Head on over, patriotmobile.com. Tell them Bree sent you if you want a free month of service. That's BRE. Head on over, patriotmobile.com, and tell them Bree sent you.